So as part of the nitrogen cycle, we talked about nitrogen fixation by bacteria in association with plants. Now that's not the only way we get nitrogen fixation into the soil, but it's a really important way and really interesting process that happens. I mean, if you think of what the aspect of fertilizers, nitrogen fertilizers, it costs a lot of energy for us to take nitrogen that's in the air and process that, okay, through a lot of industrial energy and get that bag of fertilizer that you purchase at the co-op. Okay, and this process takes a large amount of natural gas, takes a catalyst. It's really energy intensive. Well, it turns out that we have microbes that can do the exact same thing. Draw a little microbe here, okay, and gives us nitrogen usable by plants. On page 409 in your book, it shows you a picture of these nodules. So think about if you've ever seen a tree with a gall on it, or a plant that has some kind of infection, that it causes a huge growth of cells in that area to try to fight off either being fed on or infection or those kinds of things. That's sort of the process that's happening with these plants, these legume plants or plants that have an association with bacteria that can fix nitrogen. Is they get infected by this bacteria, the roots get infected by that bacteria, and they make these nodules on the bacteria, on the root, where the bacteria can expand and multiply. Your book notes that if you cut this open, they'll look sort of pinkish for the ones that are very active. So if you took a blade and cut that open, if that nodule was actively doing this process here, it would appear pink. That's kind of how we know that they're healthy. This process is started at the seed level. So with things like soybean, alfalfa, clovers, field beans, things like this, and you can see the full list of plants that have this association in table 12.2. We have to actually, in those cases, if we're planting them, for instance, for the first time in a field, we have to actually do this process of infecting, what would typically be called infecting. We call it inoculating. So we have to inoculate this seed. And so we take the seed, we oftentimes make a slurry or apply it somehow to the outside of the seed of this plant before we plant it. We plant it in the ground. As soon as that seed, let's say it's a soybean seed, as soon as that root starts to move outside that seed, it gets infected with the bacteria, and those bacteria then infect the root. The root responds to some extent by making a nodule. The bacteria then inhabit that nodule, and we have exactly what you see in these pictures up here. And we have little nitrogen factories for the plant, which is really incredible. So it's like putting these nitrogen factories right here into a plant, and you don't have to use natural gas. Okay, so also you should know that the cost of natural gas is a large dictator of the cost of nitrogen fertilizer. The higher the natural gas cost goes, so goes the price of fertilizer, and the opposite is true as well. The lower the price of natural gas, or the inputs that you have to put into this process, the lower the cost of your end product. Okay, both cases, we're pulling nitrogen from the air. Okay, in both of those cases. So we've got these little nitrogen factories that are on the plant root, creating a plant available nitrogen for this plant to use. In exchange, they get carbohydrates for the bacteria, get carbohydrates for their energy and expansion and reproduction and all that sort of thing. Really incredible process. This is a process by which you can actually incorporate more nitrogen into your fields after you have finished growing than when you had before you started, because each one of these nitrogen factories will hold some nitrogen in it for the next season. So we're going to harvest everything above this root system. We're not going to harvest the roots. We're going to leave them there. If we leave them there, we leave these nodules there which have nitrogen in them, and so they can provide a source of nitrogen for the following crop. This is one of the excellent pieces of nitrogen crop rotation. So we have to inoculate this seed. So we have to put a layer of this bacteria, but the bacteria is specific. It's not just one bacteria that takes care of all. We mentioned Rhizobium before, but as it turns out, we've got lots of different species. Okay, the genus Rhizobium or Bradyrhizobium that are related. Lots of different species in subgroups that are related to the host. Okay, so we're still talking in terms of hosts, and it's not a parasitic relationship as much as it is a symbiotic relationship. But the thing to note in this table is that not every species of Rhizobium is built for all legume species. So, for instance, for something like alfalfa, you'll see alfalfa right here. Okay, we need Rhizobium meliloti. Okay, that's the species of bacteria of particularly the Rhizobium genus, the species meliloti, that gives alfalfa the ability to set up that relationship, and sets up that relationship with alfalfa and does that process of fixation. But it's not the same thing that we would use with soybean. With soybean, we might use Rhizobium freddii, okay, to inoculate that seed to provide the plant with nitrogen. So it's specific to the particular plant you are using. Now, these can be free living in the soil. So you can have a soil that has Rhizobium meliloti living in it, okay, but it might not be enough Rhizobium meliloti to infect every single alfalfa plant and cause good nodulization, okay, nodulation. So that's important to note, that there's different species of Rhizobium, different species of Bradyrhizobium for different kinds of plants, and you have to actually inoculate with the correct one to get a really good response like we're seeing in these pictures. So that's a bit about the process of symbiotic nitrogen fixation that's also, again, described in your book.